Hey folks, how you doing out there? Darren Scorza with another Drink and a Wink info review, and also we're going to continue our Paddyrama with some looks at the Pride of Ireland single pot still Irish whiskey. I was going to maybe hold off until tomorrow. Start talking about this. Tonight, Michelle is out working on a gig, long one, thankfully, because it's always good to have gigs. But I'm off on Saturday. It's rare that that happens, and so I was going to spend the evening getting some me time, meaning I was going to do some practice, work on my instrument, all that good stuff, and then I was going to settle in and watch the late Hawks game starting at 9 because I am subscribed to the Chicago Sports Network, and I was like, oh, you know what? I can stream this, watch it, maybe get some good food. That's it. So kind of started doing that. The game started. I was still not home, checking it out, and by the time I got home here, the Hawks are losing 3-0 to Vegas. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to do I'm going to start my single pot still Irish whiskey series here, and come to you with a little bit of an idea here. We're going to talk about single pot still Irish whiskey. I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. I'm not going to go real deep. And over the next 2 or 3 videos, we're going to talk about, I think, at least 6 different ones. And I'll even give you the lineup. We're going to talk about Yellow Spot. We're going to talk about Redbreast. We're going to talk about Kilbeggans. We're going to talk about Glendalough. I don't know if I have any others on hand. I think that might be it for what I'm having. Then tonight we're going to talk about Greenspot and Teeling's single pot still Irish whiskey. I've owned a few more. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any Powers representatives because Powers isn't on sale at the moment, and I'm not really going to get into buying a whole lot of stuff. And I don't have any of the Bushmills single pots. Wait, not Bushmills. What am I thinking? Oh, Writer's Tears is another one that I don't have. But what we're going to do here is we are going to have a little bit of form on it. First thing to know about single pot still Irish whiskey is that this is definitely if you're really trying to get to the heart of Irish whiskey, we have all kinds of blends and the different brands and things of that nature. But if you're really kind of getting into what Irish whiskey is about, this is where it's at. And I was just I have my spies in Ireland right now. Matter of fact, my good friend, and some of you know him, the band director at Notre Dame College Prep for a number of years. He's in Ireland right now. I think he actually might be in Dublin because now he works for Bob Rogers Travel, and he gets to travel and tour mostly music and arts groups through that. So he's over there right now, and I always have him send me pictures of any bars or clubs or anything like that he can send me, and every one of the pictures that he sends me has every whiskey that I've named on the shelves almost all the time. Okay, I have some that I don't see up there, but all of these that we're going to talk about, these next 6 single pot still Irish whiskeys, are all up there. So while we may not actually, a lot of the things we celebrate here in terms of Ireland probably don't come off over there. We were making some jokes. The hats that we see people, maybe including this one, that we kind of think that every Irishman is wearing, maybe some of the women, they don't wear it so much, especially the big patchy ones. I can tell you that, yeah, we have some artifice here when we celebrate Irish St. Patrick's Day. And, there's some amateur hour stuff that goes on. We're just slamming Jameson and Guinness and getting crazy. That's not really part of the tradition there. But this, I can tell you, is very much the tradition. So what are we talking about when we're talking about single pot still Irish whiskey? Well, you will notice that there is some terminology that is kind of tight with single malt Scotch whiskey. Okay, so it sounds similar. There's a big difference here. So in Ireland, we have all manner of blended whiskeys. There's going to be Irish whiskey made of barley and other grains, Jamesons, Bushmills, Tullamore Dews, all manner of things. But then there are plenty of single malt Irish whiskeys as well. But the lore happens that somewhere in around 1785, I've got a couple of notes here. England actually put a malted barley tax on producers or anyone who was using barley and malted barley. So the rumor is that they tried, the Irish distillers at the time tried this idea of using a blend of malted barley and unmalted barley to beat the tax code, so to speak. And in doing that, well, I don't know if that's all that true. I was kind of looking around today. In actual fact, the idea of blending the unmalted and the malted it appeared and was bottled and produced before that 1785 law. But whether it was because of that law or just some kind of good experimentation, they came up with a flavor and a style that is very unique. Okay, the other thing about it, a pot still, is it has to be made in a pot still. Now, if you don't know your still stuff, let me explain just a little bit. And I've actually gotten this wrong a few times in the past, and now I'm kind of feeling bad about it. A pot still is very much kind of a kettle. It could kind of be this shape almost, but think of, you know, a little pot in the terms of with a long neck. If I had the willet handy right now, I'd pull that out. But that's the shape of a pot still. The nature of that is that it's not continuous. They do have to clean it out. They also will distill in this, and then will sometimes the first distillation they will kind of cut, blah blah blah. It all collects there and then goes up, and you know, and then goes into a line arm and moves over to. I'm going to turn off this Hawks game because it's distracting me, and now they're losing by it's 4-0. So anyway, it'll probably save me some internet traffic too. All right, so that's what happens in a pot still. A column still really looks like something like this, and then there's plates on the inside, so it doesn't have that same kind of shape. Single malt Scotch whiskey and Irish whiskey, or the single pot still, it all done in pot stills. The other thing about that is because of that, this has a larger, or you know, it has to go up and into line arms with this traveling versus this continuous thing. It also has a tendency to be a little meatier, a little heavier. Not everything kind of gets out of it, you know, not impurities, but just fats, oil, all the different things that make a difference there. And that's what the difference is. Column stills is usually associated more with faster run stuff because it's continuous. So gins, some bourbons here, all that kind of stuff. So that's what we're talking about. So that's the first aspect of it. The second aspect of it is this blend of unmalted and malted barley. So what the difference is here is essentially just think of it. Malted barley is essentially, you have the grain, you wet it with hot water, it just starts to sprout, and then you cut that off by drying it. When that sprouts, chemicals change, and it will take on a sweeter, nuttier tone. Okay, and just has. I mean, if you know what malt whiskey, malt liquor, malted, you know, Wendy's, like, it's the same. Well, it's probably not natural, but it's that same kind of flavor. You know what that is. So unmalted barley, when you mix that into the whiskey, will give it a more little viscous mouthfeel and add some spices that we're kind of getting away from when they malt the barley. It can be 50-50, as in the case of, I think, both of these, but I know the Teeling. Or it can also be, not to get confused, there is a minimal amount of other grains that can be added. The Kilbeggan, for instance, that I'll show you maybe tomorrow or the next day, is, I think, kind of like a little less, and there's 2.5 of oat in there. You can think you put oat, I can't remember all the different grains you can put in there, but it has to be at least 30 of the malted and 30 of the unmalted, and it can be no more than 5% of any other grain. So it's very confusing. And from what I'm reading, they're going to they might change that around where you could add some little grains, but I think that kind of takes away from it. The two that I like I said, I know Teeling is just a 50-50. There's no other grain in there. I'm pretty sure the Greenspot is similar. Maybe there's something else. So once we're done with all that conversation, then we have the typical, all the typical notes for whiskey. What are we going to age it in? Is it going to be mostly all, or it's going to be all ex-bourbon casks? It's going to be some sherry casks. Are we going to do something even fancier with it? And then how long are we going to keep it in that barrel? Okay? Let's get to drinking and talking. So the other thing I wanted to mention is very short on the history thing. Irish whiskey almost caved in the 60s, 70s, through the 80s, and the different distillers that were in there all consolidated, all but Bushmills, I believe. So Powers and all the Jameson things and all those things that were associated became Irish distillers. Okay, they were in Dublin, and the visitor center and kind of the museum distillery is still in Dublin, but actually now all of that. So Greenspot, all the spots, Redbreast, Powers, and Jameson is all in distilled in Middleton. And once again, my buddy Mike actually has part of this tour. The adults, obviously, on this tour are actually going to go see that distillery. I wish I was with him, but I'm happy to be with you. So let's talk about the Greenspot. So the Greenspot again is coming from that Middleton. The Greenspot has been around a while. At one point, it did have an age statement. Got my contacts in, so of course I won't be able to read this, even though I'm supposed to be able to read this. But the printing is pretty small. Single pot Irish whiskey. This one runs at about $60. It's very popular. You're going to see it in every bar, kind of on the top of the shelf. Triple distilled. It's 40 ABV. I wish it was a little higher, to be quite honest. Just a few points higher would be great. But that's the Greenspot. Okay, and again, this is from Irish distillers. There's also a yellow spot, which I'll bring to you, and I think a red and a blue. I don't remember. We do also have the yellow, which is a 12-year. I don't think there's anything else of note of this. Yeah, it's been around a while. So it's kind of standard single pot still Irish whiskey. If a bar is going to have a single pot still from the Irish distillers, your best bet is probably that they're going to have the Greenspot. Greenspot and then Redbreast, which is again from the same distillers, kind of bigger company, and then those are brands from within that company. As you can see, like I said, I have the cases, and I can't read any of it. Sometimes people make fun of me about keeping the cases or the canisters. I don't keep them for every whiskey that I buy, but sometimes when you're kind of cramming them in on the shelf like this, it's kind of sometimes nice to have some canisters and some not, so the bottles don't clean together. If you're throwing away your canisters, but you're going to be doing some tastings, do this. Keep the canister tops, because then when you put your glasses down, okay, I put them on the look at that. Look at how brilliant I am. There's the Greenspot logo. There's the Teeling logo. If you can see, it's embossed in the top. And that's a nice little trick to kind of rest your glasses on top, and now you know what you're doing. All right, let's get to the Greenspot tasting. Last notes, Greenspot, the single pot still Irish whiskey is just going to have a little more viscous, sometimes fruitier, sometimes nuttier, sometimes more earthy flavor. It just has it's a heartier feel. More viscous, more creamy sometimes, bigger mouthfeel, and it's just going to have a little bit more. It's not going to rely on that kind of corn-heavy vibe that we get from blended Irish whiskey. On the nose here, a little bit of very light butterscotch. Slight nuttiness, a little bit of floral. It's not overwhelming, but it's pleasant. On the taste, This has a nice wafer quality. There is a little bit of a hint of some dark fruits there. I think this is a combo of bourbon cask finishing and sherry cask finishing. I really wish I was able to read this bottle, but yeah, these contacts are kind of failing me today. I'm supposed to be able to read, but sometimes late at night I kind of lose that a little bit. Pretty great stuff. Very tasty. The finish gives me a little more some apple notes, like sour apple notes. It is not overly sweet. I get a hint of not the tartness, but like just kind of the flavor of a little bit of mustard seed on this too, which is interesting. It's tasty. I'm forgetting my political stuff in terms of what companies and which parts of the UK are and Northern Ireland, Scotland, and all that. I don't know which ones are having tariff issues. I have noted that this has always been about $60, and although, like I said, I wish it was a couple more ABV to give me just a little bit more flavor. It is really nice, really tasty. I would say it's funny. I might be getting some, bias just from the name of it, but there's a little bit of earthiness. There's a little bit of green and pine in there. It's really nice. The combination of the malted barley and the unmalted, it's just making a slightly more complex feel that changes a little bit as I drink it. They also do have some outstanding extra finishing bottles, and I don't know if those I don't know if those have a higher ABV. I should have looked. I looked them up and I forgot. You know what? Let me see if I can jump over if it's in my history, and maybe I could see if they also bumped up the ABV. Give me 1 second. Looks like they did. It looks like these extra bottlings, which are a little more expensive, they bumped it up to 92 proof. So, yeah. Anyway, let me tell you about this. They have two other bottlings with this Greenspot. They have one as a Chateau Montelena, which we have had. A friend of ours bought a bottle, or is it Magdalena? No, Montelena. That one is outstanding. That was actually kind of one of the best, definitely Irish whiskeys I've ever had. That was delicious. They also have ex-Leoville Barton Bardot finish one. Both of those are going to run more in the $90 range. But if they've upped the ABV to 92 proof and they've done that cask finishing, it's kind of worth it. If I was into right now, I'm kind of holding off a little bit. But like I said, we had that Chateau Montelena bottling, and it was really tasty. Really good. Just this one standard. I drink this all day. Cool. Now let me tell you about Teeling. Teeling has been a long-time favorite, but it's a relatively new distillery with a lot of history. Let me explain it. So first of all, for me, I was actually interested. Here's the path of Teeling, first of all. So first of all, Teeling, way back right around that tax, 1785, that area, there was a Teeling family member, gentleman named Teeling, who was a distiller and had a whiskey under that name, from what I understand. Or maybe it was a different name, but there was a Teeling distilling whiskey in the around the turn of the 1800s, from what I understand. Then, fast forward to some years later, another Teeling, that was John Teeling, opened the Cooley Distillery. Okay, and the Cooley Distillery was known for supplying whiskeys to kind of like I don't know if it's contract distilling or sourcing, but they were providing whiskeys for other distilleries. So the early stages of Glendalough, which we've enjoyed, we're getting bottles from or getting barrels from Cooley and then producing that whiskey. And now Glendalough is doing more distilling on their own. So I heard that the first thing I ever heard about Teeling was that it was also getting whiskey from Cooley. So I wanted to get some. But then what I didn't know until later is that it's a little different story with them. So when John Teeling sold his sold Cooley off, part of the deal was that he was able to keep some 16,000, I think, 16,000, I think, barrels of Teeling whiskey, so that, I'm sorry, Cooley whiskey, so that his sons, Jack and Stephen, would be able to open a distillery, and they'd already have some aged product to get going, and some good stuff. So that's where Teeling started in 2015. They opened up. First distillery to open up in Dublin in like 100 and some years. Okay, can you remember when I mentioned a lot, the Irish distillers? That whole group is now in Middleton. Now there's another one called Rowan Co. and all that, but they were the first distillery to open in over 100 years. And then secondly, this was their first offering, the pot still. That was the first pot still Irish whiskey to pop up in Ireland in I think 45 years, or be made, produced, whatever. Anyway, that's what that is. They were doing sourcing, and now they're doing distilling as well. But the sourcing, again, was mostly stuff from their dad, from Cooley. So it's not like they're just buying stuff and blah, blah, blah. So they had some really nice stuff. That's why you can find some older Teelings now. This pot still Irish whiskey is it's really nice. I've liked all the stuff that they've had. This is bottled at 46%, and it's also listed at non-chill filtered. I don't know if that says it on here. Maybe it does say it on here as well, but because this is a pretty high-quality product. I'm not quite sure on that. Like I said, I can't read, and they have a lot of... The Greenspot has a lot of stuff in cursive and really small font, so I'm sorry that I can't read it. Teeling, it's made for me. I can see this. So you can see this Phoenix Rising that also symbolizes kind of an old name that they've popped up again. Really good stuff. Now, let's see about this. This is a pure 50-50 mix. I think it's higher on the ex-bourbon cask, but I know that there's some sherry cask influence on this. Now, on the nose on this one, right out of the chute, that bourbon cask time really pops through. So you're getting more nuts, and I don't get a lot of fruit on there. A little bit of chocolate. A little more than a little bit of chocolate. Cocoa. Nuttiness. Not much fruit on that nose. Now, spoiler alert, or spoiler, I had this last night, and I remembered how much I love it. On the taste, this is very, very different. It is... I heard somebody mention this, that if you like your coffee black, it's a very good, I can't remember his name, but he's a very good reviewer from Ireland. So if you like your coffee black and you like stout beer, this is the one for you. And once he said that to me, I was like, he's right. This is very different pot still Irish whiskey. What's interesting is I'm going to mention a lot of what you might think of as dessert flavors, but it's not that. It's not sweet like that. It's like a little bit of cocoa, not overly sweet. There's some chocolate, but it's dark chocolate. There is some, towards the finish, there is that kind of feeling of you've eaten some ripe fruit, that little dryness that goes back. And on the end, there's some sherry cask oak notes. It gets a little oaky on the end. Really, really tasty. I just can't say enough of it about it. And just how different this is. Let's put it this way. I had just a drop of water. And that does... I can't have one sip and you get all these different notes. 1 second. The water in there does take away a little bit of that chocolate flavor, and it returns me a little bit more to typical Irish notes. Maybe adding a little bit of banana peel. I always get a little bit of like a banana peel note from a lot of our single pot still Irish whiskey. This is less. The water helped it along a little bit. I wouldn't touch this with water though. This is really good just by itself. A little bit of sandalwood, again vanilla, but there is this huskiness and this kind of darkness, almost like the fruit notes are really more like peel, raisin skin, and that kind of thing, and it's really on the end. And the water has emphasized that even more. You can probably tell I'm just a big fan of Teeling whiskey. Very simple reason. Is my camera moving? Very simple reason is this. When we were living just a couple miles west over here, there was a liquor store called Leo's Liquors. Still there. I still go in there from time to time, but now I'm not buying much. And they do it. It looks like a typical liquor store. Just Chicago liquor store, but they actually do get some nice stuff in there, and they also do allocated bourbons. They do some deals where if you want an allocated bourbon, you have to buy something else. They do all right. I like it. The prices aren't always astronomical. Really, good place, and they're nice people in there. But I guess Teeling wasn't selling in there because I think I have bought. I know I bought 2 there on sale before. Maybe I bought 3, but right now we own kind of the whole core range. Right now, we have their small batch, which is a rum cask finish. Okay, they're also owned by Bacardi, the parent company, so they get rum casks pretty easily. We have their single malt, which is phenomenal. We have the weird kind of single grain, which is a high corn one, which I really like. Actually, I'm kind of surprised I like it. And we have this one. So I'm a big fan of the Teeling whiskey, and that's kind of my style. I'll find one of the older ones that I really, really like a lot, and then all of a sudden I'll go, oh, what's a new thing that I can get into? In terms of kind of, there's a lot of Teeling and Glendalough for me are like they're really doing some really interesting things in Irish whiskey. So I really like this. I don't want to not talk about Greenspot, though. The spots are always hits with everyone. And I go back to that class, and yeah, it's just a different animal. It's kind of like... let me think. What would be a good way to describe it. Just kind of connect it. Yeah, it really is more like that. The Greenspot is a little closer to... maybe some a little bit more like wine, dry wine, but wine has some of those tannin notes and it just and a little bit floral. Okay, this one, the Teeling single pot still goes more towards like I had mentioned, coffee. It's creamy. It's very unique. Again, it's so cool that these companies can take, the same ingredients and with some different aging, a different style. Maybe they're using different yeast. Maybe they're cutting it and doing. They can do so much with just so many little, small variables. Really good. Wish the Greenspot was maybe a couple of points higher in ABV, and this would be a more fair comparison. That would just give us a little more of this really nice traditional flavor. Really cool. All right, I won't really rate anything. Both of these are going to be Greenspot. I think would be in my 8.2, 8.3. That's getting into I have a weird. I barely. I very rarely give anything over a 90. That means you must get out and get this. So let's go with 8.5 on this one. Right now, my personal favorite between these two is actually the Teeling, and it's six at. That's another thing. Smaller company, they're going to give you a little bit, maybe a little better value. $60 for both. This one right now is on sale for 40, from what I understand, and this is at 46%. This is great, and you can also find this sometimes cast strength. Teeling also does a whole bunch of different things with finishing. And as I mentioned in the video before, I was talking to the Dean of Allocations. If you don't know who that is, he said I could actually say it now, just as long as I'm not, it's Dean Klinker, Eastern Illinois University drummer. If you don't know, you probably figured it out. And he knows now, his wine knowledge is bar none. But he always gives me some tips. When I'm over at the Binnies, he kind of will point me to some things. All of the Teeling line right now are still on sale over the weekend, from what I believe. So if you have interest in this one, and some of them are really big, but they also have a whole set of the pot still Irish whiskey that has been finished in this and that and the other thing. Marsala casks, and maybe there's one in Mizunara. I'm not really sure. There's a whole bunch of them, and they're all Binny store picks. They're all on sale. Not all of them are as good as this one, but like I said, I would, if you have any interest, then I'm talking to you, and it's like, I'm going to buy one of the bottles that that Scores is going to buy, but I can't, I'm not going to put any $100 whiskey out here on these things. I would say get this one right now because you can buy it for $40. All right. Teeling pot still Irish whiskey bottle at 46% non-chill filter. That's what I'm going to drink the rest of the night. Greenspot, really tasty, traditional single pot still Irish whiskey, distributed by Mitchells and Sons, but it's the Irish distillers from Ireland. Really good. Save your canisters. If you don't save your canisters, save your lids. All right. Love the one you're with. Not really sure. Thanks for sticking with me on this one. It was kind of long, but it's kind of fun. Tomorrow or Monday, I'll probably not do another spot. I will probably pit. I'll just even go with it because they have similar profiles. It'll be interesting to kind of put them together. You know what I'm going to do tomorrow? I'm going to do Glendalough Irish whiskey, or single pot still Irish whiskey versus Redbreast. That would be very fair. Kind of middle of the road. The one that's going to be hard is I already know that the 12-year-old Yellow Spot is a blaster, and it's going to be. I should put something else that I also know that I really, really like. That'll probably be the Kilbeggan. That's it. All right. I'll see you next time. Sláinte. Teeling.